We are here with Mike Pollock, who's the Managing Director of Spectrum Gaming. And this is one of our favorite interviews every year at G2E, Mike, because you're sort of the intellectual of the gaming industry. That's partly how you built the consultancy that you have, is by being a person who deals with concepts. And I know you've got a top 10 in terms of trends or things to look for in the gaming industry in the coming year. And we'll discuss a few of those.
Sure.
One of them is responsible gaming. And I'm reminded of what's happened in Europe over the past year or two, where there are all kinds of caps and restrictive regulations being imposed on gaming companies because of a fear that they had gone too far in terms of their promotion. And we just had that discussion, an interview earlier with Bill Miller of the American Gaming Association, who actually takes the same position, really. What are your thoughts on responsible gaming?
Well, first of all, this is my favorite part of this show as well. I always enjoy these interviews. Now, responsible gaming, one of the things we're very, I would say, optimistic about is that responsible gaming, as we note in the list of trends, is morphing into something called safer gaming. And it's not just a change of names. It's not just a euphemism. What that implies is that responsible gaming has more or less been seen as the responsibility of the player. Safer gaming kind of shifts a little bit of that responsibility to the provider. Now, historically, and this is really interesting, is that we can call problem gambling, pathological gambling, whatever you want to refer to it, has always been behind the curve with respect to the expansion of legal gaming. In 1981, when we already had a multi-billion-dollar gaming industry, legal gaming industry in the United States, it wasn't until that year that the Psychiatric Association even recognized problem gambling as a diagnosable illness. Before that, it was viewed as just, something similar to spending too much money on shoes. It was your problem to deal with. It wasn't viewed as something that treatable or essentially a problem. So it was way behind then, and it's never been able to catch up in terms of the knowledge base and the attention given to it, the necessary attention given to it. Over the years, and we've seen this as it expanded from state to state and country to country, the examples range from what I would term the mildly amusing to the seriously problematic. On the mildly amusing side, they started with the slogan, bet with your head, not over it. A meaningless slogan. Then they added the 1-800-GAMBLER, which is still in use. But people were calling up and saying, can I get tickets to see Don Rickles? Calling 1-800-GAMBLER. It wasn't even reaching its intended audience. On the very sad part of it, there was actually certain instances, the most serious being a gentleman who was a pathological gambler and was about to be sentenced in court for embezzling money that he gambled at Atlantic City casinos. And he shot himself in the open courtroom just before he was about to be sentenced. That's where we started from. We've come a long way, but the issue and the proponents of dealing with responsible gaming have never really been able to catch up to the industry and to the opportunities afforded by gambling. That's changing where we are right now in 2021. Because where we are right now, finally, two things are taking place. The expansion of all forms of digital gaming and the expansion into more cashless gaming at casinos finally means that we know more about the people who are gambling. You can track more and identify problems before they become too serious, so that the operators who are, again, taking this very seriously can deal with it. The other thing is that, which is different now, is that the industry is not really, it's doing a lot more than lip service. This is a serious issue that is getting the attention it finally deserves. So maybe we're at a point now, after all these decades, where those who are committed to dealing with responsible gaming and dealing with problem gambling are finally going to be at somewhat of a level playing field. That's really encouraging. That's an important trend.
One of the things that Bill Miller at the American Gaming Association said about this topic, which I thought was interesting, is that one aspect of it is a market share game, in the sense that the illegal books out there and the illegal gaming sites, they don't care about responsible gaming. And so if you can legalize and the more you legalize and regulate, the more chance you have to get ahead on the responsible gaming issue.
It's absolutely correct, and I think that is a function, to a certain degree, that's a function of how regulators and legislators need to address this. And they're going to be dealing with this in multiple ways. One of the things that's been problematic, for example, is that, let's say you're on an exclusion list in New Jersey or Delaware or wherever, Indiana, and you want to gamble. You can't get yourself off that exclusion list. You can go to another state. That has to be, those kind of issues have to be dealt with. Because unless they are dealt with, you're never going to resolve the problem.
One of the topics I know you have a little bit different view than maybe the conventional view is on esports. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, I've staked my career to a certain degree. I'm pointing out that the conventional wisdom in gaming is more often wrong than it is right. And you can't go wrong betting against the conventional wisdom. Where we are right now, and esports has an enormous opportunity, and it's going to be growth in esports. Where's that growth going to be? I would submit that those who are focused on esports as a venue on which players can gamble on the outcome of esports, it's not necessarily the future. First of all, I haven't seen the full range of abilities to address things like match fixing and cheating and general oversight of esports to the point where if players have bettors have full confidence. Second of all, I don't think that what the world needs is another sport to bet on. There's plenty of sports to bet on. Esports has a great future, though, if it's channeled into certain areas. Now, one of the areas that I think is going to be very lucrative and it's going to be very popular is in peer-to-peer play. So you and I go out and play Frogger, or whatever game we want to play. I happen to be good at Froggers, that's my game. But
I'll stay away then.
Okay, and we can bet against each other. And the house, it's the poker model. The house will take a rake and it works. That's similar to the poker model. There's a lot of opportunities there, especially when you consider that you can target that in a rifle-like marketing approach, as opposed to a shotgun approach. You can target that to specific demographic groups, including demographic groups that have more disposable income than your typical esports player today has. They don't, 20-somethings are great. They're wonderful people. Some of them are my children. But they don't have a lot of disposable income, at least not what they will have in 10, 20 years. That doesn't mean that esports cannot be structured to capture different demographic groups. So you put those together, you see that there's enormous opportunities. You just got to know where to look. And again, not necessarily what the conventional wisdom is.
Right. A final topic that I know you have an interest in is the lottery, and maybe more specifically, the emergence of iLottery.
Yeah. Lottery, look, face it, lottery is a huge industry in the United States. And to think that where we are, almost 2022, and this enormous industry, this consumer-facing industry, does not have sufficient, robust, online, digital channels in which to reach its customer base. Lotteries face the same challenge that casinos face on the slot floor. It's an aging demographic. When your demographic gets 1 year older every year, you got a problem. It means you're not replacing your customers. So iLottery is obviously an opportunity. Now, there are challenges there. They're never without their challenges. One challenge is to address the concerns of traditional lottery retailers. the convenience stores, gas stations, and other stores that sell lottery tickets. They are concerned, and it's their business, they have a right to be concerned about what this will mean for their business. Now, we can look at states and what existing states, Michigan and elsewhere, that have had robust iLottery programs, look at what they've done, see what's transferable, see how, essentially what the spending patterns are, and actually look at iLottery from that standpoint as to what are the opportunities to create new opportunities, new marketing channels for them to reach their customers. The data that we've seen so far makes it clear that retailers don't suffer as a result. That's not the way it works. But that doesn't necessarily assuage their concerns. They still need to be addressed. Another issue that related to that needs to be addressed is the relationship between iLottery and iGaming. Now, there are clear differentials. You know, a lottery draw game, whether it's a digital or not, it doesn't interfere with or compete against anything a casino is doing. A digital form of roulette or blackjack or craps or whatever it might be also does not overlap into what lottery is doing, but there's this big area in the middle. A digital, left to their own devices, a digital slot machine and a digital instant game, unless there are thoughts and controls put in place, are really going to be identical products. How do you address that? How do you prevent two industries that have historically, there are subsets of the gaming industry, but they have historically operated in their own silos. Lotteries have never really competed against casinos, even though there was a fear. We're doing this interview in Nevada. It's no coincidence that there's no lottery in Nevada. This was viewed as competition. We know it's not traditional casinos and traditional lotteries, but that is always the fear. Now, in that overlap between iGaming and iLottery, slot machines versus instant games, you do run the risk of these two segments of the gaming industry now potentially colliding or competing. And how do you turn that into convergence? How do you allow them to cooperate?
You also have a issue between a state agency, the lottery, that has a lot of arguments for why it should be operating something like instant lottery,
Yeah.
and the commercial casino industry that has its interest, including the fact that it's a tax-paying entity with employees. We've covered three pretty important topics, and I thank you. We're at the gaming industry's premier national trade show, which is G2E. But there's another very significant gaming show coming up in a couple of weeks in Atlantic City, New Jersey, the East Coast Gaming Congress, which you host. And tell us what people might expect there this year.
We're very proud of the East Coast Gaming Congress. This is our 20, even though it's been around 25 years, this is our 24th show because we didn't have one last year, obviously because of COVID. Very proud of it. It's a whole different type of experience than what we have here. It's 2, 3, let's say 400 people come. It's very much, the speakers are C-suite people. We have the CEOs of most of the major brick and mortar gaming operators will be there. We deal with some significant trends and policy issues there. The governor of New Jersey will be speaking. I think it's his third appearance there. We've had 5 sitting former or acting governors. And that's a pretty good record that we're proud of. We're also, and many of your viewers know Tim Wilmot, retired CEO of Penn National. He's had a fairly storied career. And Tim will be getting a Lifetime Achievement Award that I will be presenting to him. But it's a fun conference. It's much more compact. There's a lot of networking opportunities, and let's face it, talking heads like me can only go so far. It's the networking that really drives people there.
Well, it is a good show, and we'll look forward to being there too.
Thanks, Frank.
Mike, thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.